there were actually days like you go to sleep and you just wake up and there's like $1,000 like burns into just fees, reversing fees, and you just see like 10 pages of reverts on either scan.
GM everyone, my name is Dagachi. I'm your host for Scraping Bits, and I'm here with OX Princess. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you. I really appreciate that you invited me to this podcast, and I really want to thank you, and thank all the listeners. Really glad to chat and answer all the questions that you have.
Yeah, for sure. It should be a good one. And thank you for coming on. I know it's taking time out of your day, and a lot of MEV searchers don't want to actually come on, so it should be quite interesting.
No problem.
Having said that, let's do a quick intro of what you do currently.
Yeah, so currently we are a team of like 3 people, and we do full-time searching since like 2020, the summer of 2020. And we are mostly focused on interchain arbitrage on Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain. And that's what we mostly do. And we have like some of the side projects, like the builder on Ethereum we are working on, and some other interesting stuff that will be very useful for like DeFi users on Ethereum. Yeah.
What is interchain arbitrage? Is that like cross-chain?
Yeah, so the interchain arbitrage is now because the cross-chain would be, I think, interchain arbitrage. Like intrachain should be inside one chain. So that's like the most usual atomic arbitrage you could think of. So if there's like 2 pools on Ethereum, one on UniV2 and one UniV3, and they're like in balance, you can arbitrage them in an atomic way just after the target transaction that imbalances these pools. So that's kind of arbitrage we are doing, and like it's the most is the second common arbitrage inside one chain after, not the arbitrage, but the MEV stuff you can do after the sandwiching. But the sandwiching is very hostile and extractive, you know, and it's also very competitive and risky and all this stuff. And so we decided to focus on the more safer and like way to actually not extract from value from the users and like risk our reputation and other stuff, but hold the inventory in tokens and like the Jared do. And yeah, we just like doing it. It was just normal arbitrage, and it is right now. And it was called arbitrage before Flashbots popularized the term MEV, but now it's all MEV.
How did you like get into all of this? So in 2020, how did you get into it? I assume you did it as a solo searcher to start with, and then you eventually built a team, or?
Yeah, I actually not started alone, but with a friend of mine. That's how it was started in a really interesting way. So I thought, like, I was watching the crypto space very closely. I was even trading a little, and I saw one of Telegram channels that I was subscribed to. I saw the 1inch doing Ask Me Anything session, and I just went to it, and then I didn't know what 1inch is or what DeFi is. I just like knew all the chains and like, but I didn't go into like the smart contracts on Ethereum and etc. Didn't really use any of the apps yet. And I went to this session, and I learned what 1inch are doing, and they were like, I went to their website, and they just implemented this split feature where when you split the liquidity in the router into different pools. It wasn't a thing back then, so you were just swapping inside one pool, and the router that split the liquidity. And I saw how the imbalance these splits were, and I thought that. I saw that if 99% goes into one pool and 1% to the other, so the liquidity in these pools are like 100x different. And so if there's a transaction that goes not through 1inch, but through the pool with very little liquidity, it will actually create a crazy imbalance, and this
Yeah.
and actually would be a window for arbitrage. So and I was like aware of the concept of the arbitrage and how that works, like between different taxes. The centralized exchanges. And so I thought it might be possible to just implement it into DeFi. And I didn't like know if it was even possible to swap between different pools in one transaction, etc. I didn't really knew the solidity and stuff. Like my background was mostly like backend development, and and I just went to my friend who's a math major. And we just sat and brainstormed for one day and just started this journey. And like he created a proof of concept in like 1 week that just worked. And we created this like simple proof of concept in like Python. And it was not really, it was just a simple graph of the pools. And we just tracked, and not even opportunities created by single transactions, but by the window opportunities that occurred after a block comes out. And we just captured a single opportunity for like $2,000. And this window like was open for like a week, and nobody captured it. So it was really crazy because like the most searchers would capture the opportunities between like known pools. So there, it looks like there wasn't really an automated pool discovery searches yet. So no one just did it in the automatic way, but just they whitelisted pools in their configs, and they arbitrage between different known pools. And we just did the automatic pool discovery. So we discovered like a very like the pool that just no one saw for like a week. So after like this success, like the instant settlements of the one transaction, that was our first transaction for 2K. We like actually thought that it's actually working. It might be a good stuff to be doing for the next like half a year. And we started like iterating over this concept and improving our smart contracts, improving our code, like rewriting everything from scratch. And like we actually, at the current date, we did like maybe 10 like completely different versions of our bots. So like we wrote like 10 times, because we're doing it like already like 3 years. So we actually like constantly rewriting on the stuff from scratch, because we have to adapt to the landscape. A lot of new protocols are being added constantly. And some of these protocols are just not fitting our current architecture, and so we have to rewrite it to be compatible. And it sometimes requires like breaking everything, rewriting it from scratch. And so we had like one bot, that one version that was working for like half a year without any changes, while we were rewriting everything from scratch to write a completely new, like very, very complex version of this new bot.
And what was the process of building the new iterations?
The pipeline was like the following. We saw that the new protocol comes out, and it becomes really popular, like it was in like UniV3 case, right? So when the UniV3 came out, searchers that did UniV3 arbitrage were like very profitable, orders of magnitude more profitable than other searchers, because like UniV3 math is still something that most people are struggling with, even with ill being, right? Not even mentioning distortion on it and like doing an arbitrage. So it's still very complex math inside smart contracts and outside smart contracts. You have to consider a lot of things, and the pool logic is different, and etc. So and we like saw the UniV3 like that comes out, for example, and we understand that it might not fit our current like bot architecture. So what we are doing is like we are just completely leaving the current version as it is. So it's just running, and we just forget about it, and we're just starting to rewrite everything like from scratch, considering the existence of the UniV3 and how we will fit into our like searching architecture. Yeah, this is
Basically build
and it
modules.
just like takes. Yeah, and it just like takes like maybe 1 month to rewrite everything, and then we just with a completely new version, with a completely new set of bugs, we're just running the bot. Yeah, so
Did you ever run the bot and then like the bugs were detrimental, like you lost money once running it?
maybe there was problems like that because we were it was a thing on Ethereum in early days, in pre-flash bot days, because you were actually sending the transaction to the transaction pool, right? It was almost always reversing. So for 10 transactions sent, maybe 1 transactions were actually landing and not reverting. And of course, you will be losing the fees paid for the reverted transaction, right? So out of 10 transactions, you would pay for 9 transactions for the reverts. And the problem is it's like 1 to 10 ratio, but when it comes like 0 to 10, you just pay the so it was actually really and it was actually real hard to debug, because like the transaction passes all the simulations and all the stuff that you would like check before sending it, and it just wants like in your simulations it should land like 100%, and when it doesn't land, you don't really know why it didn't land. So it might be like your competitors that front run you. It might be like hostile miner that were excluded this transaction or put it in the place where it reverted. So there was like a multitude of reasons why it would revert, and it was like no actual way to track it. Oh, and even like not any ways to troubleshoot it. So there were actually days like you go to sleep and you just wake up and there's like $1,000 like burns into just fees, reversion fees, and you just see like 10 pages of reverts on either scan, and you just grab. And it happened like many times, and this was actually the case how you can just lose a lot of money. After the flashbots, it wasn't actually the case, I think, because because we did atomic stuff, so we had like 2 risks, and this was the unbundling, right? So that was actually tested in practice by some guy that's currently known as Low Carb Crusader, right? So he unbundled, but it was the risks for sandwiches, and we did not do sandwiches. But if unbundled, we will still our transaction might revert, and we'll still have to pay for the revert. And the other thing is the smart contract vulnerability. So you might know the guy, the Grug Capital. So he is like known for just doing independent audits of searches contracts for
independent audits.
Independent audits. For vulnerabilities and like callbacks and other stuff in like unchecked permissions, and so this is also a great risk. It's not currently the case in our smart contract, because we use the flash loans for most of our operations, because you can just do a flash loan in UniV2 pool, and as far as I remember, maybe in UniV3 even, but in UniV2 for sure, you can do that, and you would not pay any fees for this, if I remember correctly. So and before we had to just had our own inventory, and we were like risking it when doing our transactions if there's any vulnerability in the callback and other stuff. But now, because we just do the flash loans, we don't risk anything in our bank. So it's a really safe way to like do this stuff on chain.
Yeah, the flash loans are super beneficial because you can just basically borrow millions of dollars and then make a profit with those millions of dollars and pay back the fee.
Yeah.
But then you've already made money. So it's like, it doesn't really matter. But it's really expensive as well, gas-wise. So if you're trying to basically compete with someone that's got a massive incentive, then that's kind of a detriment. But it depends on how much money you're making, right? And your strategies and etc.
Yeah, for sure. So like that's the reason why like the space is really competitive, and many of the top searchers like have very insecure contracts, I think. So they're just like, there's a trade-off, right? So yeah, you might be doing stuff like flash loans, and just it will spend a lot of gas, and you'll be just using your own inventory for your operations, and that will like you'll be just risking it. And it's like all about risk perception of you as a team. So I think for us it's much more interesting to not risk our inventory, but rather just be a little bit more a little bit less competitive on the market, but be safe, because you might be seeing like a lot of hacks related to searches, and there's like unlike like hacks of protocols where there's a lot of users affected, and there's actually like there's a possibility that the team would return something, or hacker would return something. In case of the searches, like there's no one that will stand for you. So if you get hacked, like you just lose all the money. So, and nobody like say, oh, this poor searcher. Like no, especially after yeah, so especially after the Flashbots has popularized MEV, and the MEV has become a synonym of like exploitative MEV, like sandwiches. Most people think that all the MEV is not good, and it's harming the space and crypto and users. So when you'll see like news about like this search got hacked, people will not care like if we're doing sandwiches, or if we're doing like atomic arbitrage, or if we're doing like liquidations. People will like say, oh, yeah, that's the right thing. He should suffer this loss, because the bots are bad. So I think it's really important just in this space to be safe, because there's no one who will stand for you.
Especially sandwiches. Like people hate sandwiches. Basically more than anything else in this space. I think more than rug pulls, actually. Like I feel like people that rug pull, they get shamed on, but then it kind of is forgotten about for a while. But like sandwiches are always popping up, and they're just like their reputation is just so bad because they make it worse for everyone. I wonder, so you started with you and your friend, right? And then you said you have a team of 3 now. So how did you end up hiring or getting on board another person and like trusting them?
That's a really interesting story, because there's a really, like, this is one of the greatest problems of all teams that do searching, because, like, unlike the companies, when you just have an IP, right, and you have the IP rights that are covering you, and so you can sue someone IRL for, like, stealing your IP. In the case of searching, like you have like almost no foundation, a legal foundation, especially if you are in the country where the like laws regarding the crypto is not very stable, and like there's nothing that covers you in any way. So there's a great problem of trust in the searcher space regarding that, and it's really hard to hire someone, especially an unknown person previously, that will do work with you. So, and it's also really hard to, unlike big companies where you can actually split responsibilities very like clearly, and give access, like very precise access to the information and the code, etc., to the new person. In the searcher space, it's really hard because all your like services are very entangled. So you're like you have almost like a monorepo, right? So you just have
Yeah.
everything in one place, and you should give like a new person access to all of it, and then you just risk it because the person, if it's a good code like that doesn't have any bugs, critical bugs, or right, someone just might copy it and just leave your team on the second day, and and just run it yourself, set the fees like 1% higher, or like 10% higher, and just be your competitor for free, actually. So and you'll not be able to sue him or like do something with him. So that's a great problem of trust that all teams are facing. So we didn't solve the problem, but what we did is we just onboarded a person that we know. It was just our third friend, so we're just all three friends, the happy three friends, and we are doing the searching together. So and we all have like the great background behind like financial applications and etc. So and
it makes sense. You have to basically trust them like a best friend that you've known for a long time. You can't really just bring on someone from Twitter and hope that it's going to be all fine and dandy, because they could share, I mean, they can sign an NDA and whatever, but that doesn't stop them from like telling someone and then that person doing something. You can't really trace it back unless you get like basically access to their private DMs, or even if they just told them in person or over a call, like it's so hard to trace, and then you can't really sue or even know if they've even told. So it's really a trust thing. And it's really critical, especially for those strategies that are, high alpha and what we're building right now, which let's say is being in the works for months, and they just like kind of leak it or in any way to like another team or even on Twitter, on like an alt account, I guess.
Yeah, I just thought that like we see like very similar stuff in like DAOs, right? So there's a lot of drama in DAOs, like when there's a lot of incentives for different like entities that are inside one DAO, right? But they just like have like competitive proposals and like competitive like fund spendings. And it's like all the code and all the stuff is open source, but there's still a drama. So it's especially like if it's a problem in the open source space, so that would be even like the greater problem in the closed source space. Like
even like finding new strategies, people want to leak that, but leading to that, how do you even find new strategies, or were you just kind of like focusing on one and optimizing that until you're kind of like the best?
Yeah, so our approach like is, I think it's similar to the most like top 1% teams. I think their approach is similar, is like doing an automated way for finding stuff. So like the soul searchers, and I saw podcasts with like soul searchers, and like they were talking about almost like constant greeting for new opportunities. So they just constantly watch the chain, and they just see very like niche, long tail opportunities, and they just execute them for like 1 week, and they wait for other opportunities for like half a year, and they just see a new opportunity, they just exploit it for 1 more week, and just leave off these like returns for the next half a year. So something like so, and they just do that in parallel to their like main job. So it's almost like a hobby for them. So if you are doing like searching full time, especially in a team, and you have to make like constant stable returns, so it's viable to just set the automated way for finding like new protocols and pools, and you'll not be able to exploit these niche opportunities that soul searchers will exploit. But what we'll do is you'll have the constant fund flow revenue stream, right? So you're just sacrificing some of the performance for the stability that you have. And you just just set up a lot of like filters and checks and do all this stuff to find new pools in DeFi protocols you already know, and maybe you monitor for some new protocols and contracts that are appearing on the chain, and you just add the interfaces to these contracts to be included in your already automated system, and you'll just check if it is included properly and added in your like graph of pools that you are searching. And yeah, so this is the way we like doing it, and I think like most of teams that are doing it full time have like similar way of doing it. Yeah, because else like it's just there's just no way like of finding the strategies if you're doing full time searching.
Yeah. So you got to build like some automated system really to just kind of, I guess the most efficient way would be like symbolic analysis, right? And just like go through every possibility. But that's also incredibly computational heavy, right? So I guess if someone was a solo searcher, how would they even approach this if they didn't want to just like mess around, I guess?
That's a like really interesting question, because I started my Twitter account in like 2021, I guess, at the end of 2021. And the first like mini thread I wrote is just, it's too late for solo searchers to enter MEV competition. So, and that's my first thread that had some got some attention from the like other guys. Yeah, because actually, and in my opinion, it was late even back then, in the end of 2021, because there were already like some cartels. It was called like MEV cartels or something. Is there because there was just a lot of teams that extracted MEV along before Flashbots, and they were really close like relationships with miners, with large miners, and so this like teams like they just like were searching even after Flashbots. So, and then like they're switching their connections from miners to validators, to large validators, and they switch their connections from miners to Flashbots and etc. So now they're have close connections to builders, and they didn't like just lost their code base, right? So they still had their code base, and so the problem is not really in extracting like building a system that would be able to extract such value, right? But the problem is in competition. So because the winner gets everything or nothing, like the winner gets everything and loser like got nothing in this space. So it's not like just a middle ground. If your system is like 10% worse than everything else's, right? So you'll get nothing in return. And so that's a problem. Like if you're a sole searcher, you'll spend like maybe half a year for building an automated system that would just like start up and would work somehow, but then you'll just figure out that you are just not competitive because your bundles will not be landing, even if you set like 100% bribe, like so to the proposer, it will still not land because currently the bribes are like 90% plus, I think. So there's not enough, because there's really tight competition, and especially it became more and more complex to stay competitive during the bear market, because we are like maybe like almost 2 years in the bear market, and like all the searchers teams that started searching on chain in 2021 and starting doing it full time are still doing it today, and mostly so, but the market is different, so the revenues are like 10 or just 100x less that it was in the bull market. So the room for improvements and in terms of like bribes you give to the proposer is like just really small, and there's just no competition in there. So I mean, like you cannot set the higher bribe with the worst system and just be competitive. Yeah. And that's the problem for soul searchers mostly, because they have to not only build the working system, but the system that would be competitive with everyone else's systems. So and
They've got to play
I
catch
don't
up,
think,
basically.
yeah. So I don't think that the soul searcher can approach that like that easily. But if you will want to approach this, so one advice from me is just you will have to figure everything out yourself. So this is like the main like point I will like say to everyone who will want to search, because I see like many people just asking someone like, can you teach me MEV? Can you? But like you're just so popular, and you're probably like doing millions in revenue. Like why wouldn't you share all your secrets and all the alpha with us? So can you please and so yeah, I really saw a lot of people like this asking stuff on Twitter. Hopefully they were not in my DMs, but in someone else's.
Yeah,
And
you're in my DMs.
yeah, and so these people are just not gonna make it, right? So these people are just like went into crypto for easy money, but the thing is, 2 years of the bear market made it impossible to get like free money, even from airdrops. Right? Like I was like saw the posts like yesterday that said that some guy did like 200 maybe a million volume on some exchange, on some new exchange, on Optimism or Arbitrum or Solana. I didn't remember, and they just got $500 in a drop. So yeah, so they built the system to like do the market making basically on the new like decentralized exchange, right? And they spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of funds for like they burned their funds for the just fees, and they just got $500 like dollars in return. So this is the current state of the market. So it's really hard to enter for the newcomers, and if you want to enter, still you have to have the mindset to figure everything out yourself, because there's no friends in here.
Yeah, and everybody's trying to basically tell you the opposite of what's true, or try and play mind games with you to basically limit how fast you can get to their state or even catch up, because it's a zero-sum game, and whoever basically can incentivize the miner the most gets all the money. Or let's say they have a strategy, they don't want you to kind of like pick up on it and then copy them and then optimize it. Yeah, it's such a brutal PvP arena. It's kind of like Hunger Games where there's only one survivor. But yeah, I assume you guys run your own nodes, and now you've gotten into block building, right? So how did you really get into block building? I think that's pretty interesting and quite difficult to get into initially.
Yeah, so this is the interesting transition that we had. So I think that most searchers that are doing searching with flashbots have one problem, is that the current like PBS design is not really optimized for the rich feedback. So it is designed like you just create a bundle, you send the bundle, the receiver of this bundle like do the simple validation, right, that your transaction is actually well signed and the bundle is not malformed, and etc. It just do very simple checks, and it will give you like a single feedback that it gives you is that the just hash of the bundle. So if your bundle like is correct, like Flashbots will give you hash of this bundle, and yeah, that's it. So you'll get like no further feedback from the builder or from like Relay or from like anyone. You just send it one way and hope it will land. And if it will not land, it's very hard to troubleshoot your system, like why it didn't land. Maybe it wasn't really competitive with other like bundles, or maybe the
Yeah.
original like target reverted, and maybe like a lot of really stuff could happen. Like you could have like not enough gas for your transaction to execute, and you'll get no feedback. So like you'll get no loss because your transactions will be not be included onto the chain and reversed, right? But you will get no feedback. So you will not be able to even like know if your transactions have reverses during the block building, and those there will not include it. And this is the problem that we faced, especially right because we had like a constant stream of bundles coming to like to the builders, and we were actually we wanted to understand what's going on, because at some point we just have really like very little bundles that actually landed on chain for some reason, and we didn't like know why it happened. So we just like our profits were like zero for like several days because no bundles were included, and we just like wanted to figure out what's the problem. So did we set the like low bribe and lose this competition, this auction, right? Or did we had some new bug in our smart contract, or did we had a bug in the fees calculation or in our simulations? There's a lot of like modules that can just stop working in such a system, and we don't really know what was the issue. And especially the block builder, because the block builder is a black box actually, right? So you just send, as I said. So we wanted to make our own block builder that will like give us very rich output in terms of what's going on, and we wanted to simulate the block building process from the real block builders, right, and understand what's going on with our own bundles. And then like we thought that if we are doing such a complex system, right, if we are doing actually our own block builder to simulate other block builders, maybe it's worth like putting it in production and make our own like real block builder, right? So and why not? Because it's actually the same, like the model of block builder and the block builder is the same, except the real block builder is putting its blocks on blockchain. So and we just built our block builder. We finalized it just maybe a month after the PBS came out and the proof of stake hard fork were in power. So and I think we did a little bit after all the other block builders, and but what we found is that we were not really like competitive on the block builder market, because our hypothesis was that we create a lot of our own order flow from interchain arbitrage, right? And so we can subsidize our blocks with this order flow. It was exclusive order flow, right? So instead of sending to the competitive block builders, we will send to only our block builder, and thus we will win all the blocks, right? So, but it turned out that it's not enough. So it was actually very, very important. So what we found is that to be competitive in the current block building market, you have to do sandwiching. That's the first thing. It basically doubles your block building profit from our statistical analysis. And the second, and we didn't do sandwiching.
Yeah, sandwiching basically is like you got double the transaction inflow, right? And even I think liquidity sniping as well, but it's not as frequent. So that's why, the more transactions you got going into your bundle and more transaction inflow, the more share of the market you're going to have, and the more frequent you're basically going to have the confirmations, right?
Yeah, and the other thing we discovered is that, I may be wrong, but if I know correctly, the current like leaders in the block building market, except that was of course, are like deeply tied with startup teams that are being sexist with DEXs. And so the major part of their revenue, of the block builder revenue, are coming from this. So not even sandwiches, but the startup. So it's it's really hard to also evaluate the amount of the startup of being extracted, because it's like not atomic transactions, right? You don't see all the legs of these trades. So you don't see like what they're doing on success. You don't see what they're doing maybe OTC even, right? So, and we just only see that some transaction, maybe even transfer transaction, right? If it's OTC, are like going on chain. And, but the most like profit the builders are getting right now, I think is from startup. And we didn't have the connections to startup teams at that time. So yeah. So we just like boost our like production of our block builder. So we just produced some blocks for a little time, and we even produced the block with 300 ETH revenue, if I remember correctly. It was during some NFT mint, and it was like probably a bug in this NFT UI that we're also doing transfer to the Coinbase for some reason, as instead of like so to mint NFT you should like pay some ETH, right, to mint, and there was probably some bug in this smart contracts of this NFT that instead of doing transaction to like the contract, they'll do transaction to the Coinbase or something like that. So the block ended up in paying like 300 ETH to the validators, and we minded this block. Because
and like another thing is like if someone does like a front run, an exploit, or any kind of exploit, basically, and they want to like bribe their way with like let's say a MEV searcher is like a front runner and they do a fixed gas price or a fixed like fee to basically pay for the bundle to incentivize the confirmation. If they front run a hack, they're basically giving you like 60%, for example, of a hack, which could be, millions.
Yeah, so that's what we found out basically. And we had to come with some strategy that will like more long-term strategy, right? So to become competitive in the block building market. We had to offer something to the market, right? And adapt that other builders cannot. So what we came out with is the idea of this rich outputs, rich feedback from the builder that we were struggling ourselves with. So current builders just like don't give you any feedback, as I said earlier, and I talked to other searchers, and this was not only our problem, of course, but it's a problem of almost any searcher, or not a searcher, but just a user who just submits their transaction to the builder for some other reason rather than searching, right? So this is the problem, and we wanted to address it in our own builder because we did it for ourselves, and we just wanted to put it in production, expose it into APIs, like do the load balancing and do the 100% uptime for the rest of the market, and just provide it in exchange of transactions coming directly to us. So and that's what we are building basically, and like we our goal is to be like very developer friendly, and our target audience not like even interchain searchers, like because I think we are covering most of the strategies right now, and like we are mostly targeted towards startup teams that are very used to Zex APIs, and because the Zex APIs are like very developer friendly, that's mostly a good experience, and we wanted to make like similar set of APIs but for on chain, because right now like you have to do a lot of stuff yourself, not only run the
Yeah.
nodes, but you have to modify these nodes, and you just have to build your own set of APIs, and like you have to simulate everything. You have to have all the math re-implemented from Solidity to like Rust or something, right? Yeah, and it's really complicated, right? Or if you want to do swaps in UniV3, or you want to do instant liquidity provision, right? For UniV3, like it's really hard to evaluate everything. And so what we want to do is to make basically we already have everything, right? So we just use it ourselves. And what we want to do is to just expose it to everything else, and just like say, you can use our APIs, but just please send your transactions to us. So we will we'll become like more competitive on the market of the block building.
Yeah.
And we will be able to additionally subsidize our build blocks with our own order flow that we are creating. And yeah.
So what would your own order flow look like?
So our order flow is basically backruns, right? That are going after user transactions that are uninformed order flow. So the user sends transactions to somehow. We see this transaction arise from transaction pool or from some private channel, right? We see the transaction, we do the background, and we also like wanna like pay the user too. So like the MEV blocker does currently, because like it's an additional incentive for users to send transactions for us privately. So we want to and we want to pay the user. So yeah. So basically, as I described, like we do the arbitrage, and our order flow is mostly an arbitrage, non-extractive, right? So that's beneficial to both users and both LPs users and us. So yeah, that's our like private order flow we want to subsidize our blocks with. So we will just not send it to other block builders, but exclusively to our block builder.
Yeah. So basically, when you see like a transaction, you do an arbitrage, you're basically subsidizing them and paying them for basically, oh, thank you for this opportunity. Here's a little cut.
Yeah. Not even a little cut, but like we are planning to give like maybe 50% or maybe even more to the user.
Okay.
Yeah, because we cut a lot of intermediaries, right? And we don't have to pay everything to the validator, because because currently the transaction that came to the transaction pool is seen by everyone, and the auction is basically is that there's a competition to the in terms of bribes paid to the validator, right? So 95% of the bribe is going to validator. But when your transaction is private, it is private to you. You don't have to pay any bribe to the validator, right? You can pay everything to the user, back to the user. So we can, so we are saving 100% of the bribe mostly, and like we just split it in half, and we just pay half to ourselves and half to the user. I think it's a fair deal.
Yeah.
So
how did you even get into basically block building? And like how, like let's say if sorry, not that question. Basically, if you were to get back into block building from scratch, and where you didn't know anything about block building or even like node creation, how would you even approach that now knowing what you know now? How would you accelerate that sort of a process?
Like, I don't think it's really it is that easy. The same point as I said in terms of searching. Yeah, but it's it's much more easy right now because Flashbots did open source all their stuff, and you basically can just copy paste the code and run your own builder for free, and that's actually it. It will even receive bundles and etc. So you just have to set up the middleware and maybe it's Sentry nodes and etc. and the database and just run it. It's very complete because when we did we built our builder. We coded out our builder. There wasn't any reference, and currently there's Flashbots open source builder code and everything can build upon it. So and that's how actually one can get started in block building. But as I said, it's really hard to get to be competitive, you have to, you should have some connections to someone who has order flow, like private order flow, to
Yeah.
subsidize your blocks. And unfortunately, you'll have to accept also this like extractive, toxic order flow like sandwiches. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, in the current auction, it's not like you will not be competitive without it, and that's what like
Hmm.
Yuri Klarman from Bloxroute we were saying basically is that it's actually a great problem because there's just no way you can accept these toxic bundles. Yeah, this how
Hmm.
the current PBS auction is designed, and that's one of the many flaws of it. So
Yeah, it's a big one. It's basically accepting detrimental transactions to users, but if you don't accept it, someone else is, and then you're not going to get a transaction for it, right? So it's just going to always get on chain. I guess like what does a day in a life look like for you when doing like block building and MEV?
day in life, like in the real life, or
Yeah, like how do you structure your day so you can kind of like juggle everything and keep up with,
oh,
competition and optimizing?
that's a really like painful question, Leah, because what because I don't know, like you might be seeing a lot of like YouTubers doing their videos about their day in life, and they're called like day in life of the Facebook coder, right, or day in life of the Google coder, and you
Yeah.
basically it's like an ideal life where you just like stay awake and you just drink the coffee, go to the gym, and then you just
Yeah.
like it's like a life of a Superman, basically. So
Yeah.
and I'm thinking in reality reality is pretty much different, and so like my reality is mostly like just normal life, but it's not really normal, it's worse than normal,
Yeah.
because if you are doing like any sort of startup, like, and I think all
Hmm.
startups know this, that if you do any sort of startup and you're like wearing all the hats possible, you have to
Hmm.
work like not even twice as much as like normal coder, right? So you should be aware of everything's going on like 24/7, right? And
Hmm.
it doesn't give you any room for like personal life or like
Yeah,
so
I agree.
you're basically sacrificing your life and your like young years, like your best years in your life, you're sacrificing them for your performance. And
Yeah.
and that's actually my case too. So what I do
Hmm.
is mostly sit on the computer, like, and coding, or like thinking about coding. Then I'm
Yeah,
monitoring
same.
Twitter for some like news, hacks, protocols, dramas, and etc. So
Uh-huh.
that's a day in life of like a normal like internet user, basically, except that I'm coding a lot. So
Yeah.
and
It's same with
and
me.
so there's not really much to brag about. So
It's really like that. You've got to basically be hands on all the time and sacrifice personal life for basically your career, right? Because if you're not going to
yeah.
do it, someone else is going to do it, and it's the only way you can kind of keep up with performance and optimization and even competition. So it is brutal, but it's like a necessary evil. And if it all turns out well, then it's somewhat worth it, I guess, in the future, because then you've just kind of sacrificed, short term partying and I don't know, like healthy lifestyle for
Yeah,
future
for sure.
success, and then you live the rest of your life with I guess, like less worries financially if it all turns out well. But you've also got like the experience of doing the startup, and you can spend like the rest of your life with, I guess, your loved ones and whatnot. But if it doesn't turn out, then you just get experience, and then you just move on to the next one until it works, right?
Yeah, so it's all about like the perception of life and also the risks involved, right? So as in
Mm-hmm.
everything, so you just so if the experience that you get in the most negative case, like it's worth it, so then you just go for it, right? And it's also, I think it's also very tied to all the responsibilities you have as a person in your life. So if you like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like don't recommend going to searching for most people, right? Because they all, if they're like not 18 or like 20 years old, they already might have a family to care about, right? So they have already have a personal life, and they just like don't have to sacrifice it because they already have like a good life, and they just should be improving it, right? So they shouldn't like break everything and go like in the woods with your laptop and starting your own like searcher bot from scratch. Yeah, because you have something like to lose, right? But if you like a young person, young, ambitious, and like you understand that like parents may take care of you if all goes wrong, right? So you have some, and you have like no responsibilities, and so that's actually might be worth it. So that's you're young and hungry, so that's what you are doing. Like you do some sort of startup. But I don't think like searching is a popular thing right now. You know, like everyone's pivoting to AI, and so actually I think that like most young and hungry persons will do their own wrapper around GPT-4. So
Yeah, it seems pretty common right now, and I totally agree with. If you have less responsibilities, you should definitely be trying to maximize risk, as long as you can keep your head above water. Because if you're not taking the risks early, then you won't be able to take the risks later when you have more responsibilities. I guess with family and like trying to keep like basically a healthy lifestyle with friends and whatnot, because that's kind of like life is kind of about in my eyes, at least. Without friends, it gets kind of boring, right? But yeah, I think this has been quite an interesting talk, and it's been a pleasure to have you on, and I'm very thankful we've got to have this chance to chat and create a connection. And I hope a lot of the people listening, if there are people listening, enjoy this talk as well. Very insightful from an experienced sort of MEV searcher as yourself.
yeah, thank you for the inviting me, and yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation as well. Yeah, so and to talk about it, and like to let people know how it is to be a searcher, and like what struggles
The
a
realities.
a full-time searcher have. Like, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, next time we definitely got to talk about the war stories of past experiences, but that's for another episode, so definitely have you back on. But until then, take care.
Yeah, thank you. You too.